Welcome everybody to the regular Board of Education meeting, March 7th, 2016. Just a little housekeeping first. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of the public body at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the School District of the Chatham Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, clerks of the Chatham Borough and the Chatham Township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Mr. Gilfillan, Mr. Arnott,
Present.
Ms. Ciccarelli,
Here.
Ms. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Connors, Ms. Crone,
Here.
Mr. Brands,
Here.
Ms. Kenny,
Here.
Ms. Weber.
Here.
7 present and counting.
Excellent. Would everybody stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is a regular Board of Ed meeting. I know everybody except for Ed has just joined us. We were here from 6:30 to 7:30 in an open finance meeting. It was our first open finance meeting. Thank you, Ed, for attending that. Guys got to get credit. So we have a pretty packed agenda. I know we're going to discuss the budget a little bit. We're also going to discuss, hopefully, a little bit about the preliminary referendum dates, when we can expect, some more information on any referendum that we're going to run later in the fall. I don't have anything else right up front as the President's comments, but we'll have more items to discuss as the agenda unfolds. Dr. LaSousa, can I pass this to you now for the Superintendent's report?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Weber. 3 quick items. First is a big, giant congratulations to the staff, the crew, the actors, the pit musicians, everyone involved in Shrek. It was really tremendous. If any of you got to see it, it's probably, I'd say, the best musical I can remember seeing at Chatham High School. It was very, very impressive. So great job to everyone involved in that terrific performance. Also, probably apropos to congratulate all of our winter athletes. We had a terrific winter season. Naturally, our girls' swim team is a dynasty, but several other of our teams went deep into their respective tournaments. One of our wrestlers, Mike Kellstrom, was down at Atlantic City. I know Ms. Ciccarelli was cheering him on this past week, and it was a very good winter season. And of course, our boys basketball team continues to advance in the state playoffs, so that's been exciting for the community. Second thing for me is we give a comprehensive overview and report on our disciplinary incidents at the end of every school year. We include in that items related to HIB. We are required, though, to give a midpoint overview or report on HIB investigations and affirmations through the end of January. So I'll just quickly move through that and say there were 12 investigations at Chatham High School. 11 of those investigations were found to have been an active HIB. At the middle school, we also had 12 investigations, but only 4 incidents were confirmed to be HIB. We didn't have anything at Lafayette, and we had 1 each at Milton, Southern, and Washington Avenue School, and none of those investigations resulted in a HIB finding.
And that's the summary for
That's
what period of time?
that is from September 1 through December 31.
Okay, so that's you're halfway
Yes.
to the end of the year. Okay.
And then we'll give a whole,
Yeah, I was just
report
trying
at the end of the year
get
and
the
presentation.
Yeah, we get them every board meeting. I was just curious what range you were summarizing.
And then the final item is just a note that our kindergarten enrollment is a little bit lower than it was a year ago at this time, and lower than it was 2 and 3 and 4 years ago at this time. So we have just under 200 students enrolled right now for kindergarten next year, and that's a handful of kids less than we had a year ago at this time. So we're keeping an eye on enrollment. Last year, of course, we thought we were going to either plateau or decline a little, and then we had a surge in the summertime, so we'll wait and see what happens in that regard. And that's it for my report.
Okay. We'll ask you more questions on the referendum during board business. Okay, thank you. Mr. DeQuilla?
The only thing I'd like to report is a brief facilities update. The maintainers continue to do everything they can. As far as getting ready for spring, it's been a little bit of challenge getting on the fields with as well as our recent snowstorm from last Friday, so a little wet, but doing what we can. For the work on the infields for girls softball and boys baseball, the vendor has been out to look at the infields. Hopefully should have his quotes to prepare the infields as late as, well, hopefully as early as tomorrow or as late as Thursday. Based on cost, we will give him the go-ahead, so hopefully he'll get that work completed within 10 days to a week and a half, so the baseball and softball can get started.
And we're talking varsity JV, right? All
Yes,
four?
all four
Okay.
fields.
I just want to be clear, because
Yep.
some of the baseball folks had concerns that it would only be the varsity field.
No, we know that the varsities, now that the construction is all done and the field is back, where, you know, we have four, I guess, I don't want to say baseball, softball diamonds to maintain. I don't want to just say baseball and exclude softball, or, you know, but 4 diamonds to maintain them.
Okay,
And that the vendor will look at for getting the clay infields ready and as best as possible, you know, for the start of the season.
okay. And we've budgeted for the work on the infields. They're going
Yes.
to give us an estimate for the work on the outfield.
He's going to look at the outfields to see what can be done at the outfields at the middle school are, well, he's evaluating, seem to be okay. It's really the outfields at the high school that needed some attention with growing grass, which is always difficult if you don't stop playing. It's hard to get grass to grow.
Right,
We'll do the best that we can.
okay. And he understands we're looking for even incremental plans?
Yes, he knows that we can't afford to do something all at once, and so
Right,
it'll be hopefully a 3-step forward and only 1 step back every year that will make some improvements, play on it, and,
okay.
you know, make some improvements that will just gradually inch up and make the fields more acceptable.
Okay, that'd be good. I mean, we've ignored those fields for years, so a little bit progress and attention would be great. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeCola? No? Okay, moving on to liaison reports. I'm sorry, committee reports, I apologize. Personnel, Ms. Clark? Sure thing.
Yes, personnel met, and I never went. It was 2 weeks ago. But we discussed issues with the substitute service and with ASOP, and just looking at some kind of troubleshooting and how to work around that, and restructuring and looking at the possible structures of the personnel committee as it is right now.
Okay, and can you share what some of the ASA, I was wondering why I wasn't at that meeting, but I forgot, Sal took my spot on that
Yes.
committee.
Just if there's a shortage of subs, you know, kind of across the board, but it's not unique to Chatham. Other
Okay.
districts are experiencing the same problem, and ASOP is a shared service, so substitutes can work for many different districts. Another issue with substitute shortages is just that because of the Affordable Care, subs can only work a certain amount of days, and so it shorts people out to, you know, that they can only work a certain amount in one district. So if they've
Right.
met that maximum, they can't come back to
Come
work.
back here, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, they'll have to, yeah, it's a certain amount a week or
4
a month,
days.
right? It's 4 days a week or,
We have to keep them under 30.
so it's, you know, this is a good service in that it manages that. It's,
Sure.
You know, it accounts for that and it kind of blocks them out, so it's good in that respect, but in other respects, it's meeting some challenges, so.
And are you getting more applicants every day, or,
So we continue to hire. We're constantly advertising and bringing in subs. So
Okay.
Our goal is to just keep increasing our numbers so that we hopefully get to fulfillment levels that are better.
okay. And is the issue more at one school versus another? I mean, levels, high school versus, you know, K to 3?
I think it varies. We, you know, our secretaries do a very good job of filling last-minute absences on a daily basis.
Okay,
I mean, I think one thing that came out at our meeting is that it seems to be at the younger grades, it's a little easier to get coverage when you move up, you know,
Okay.
we're looking at a class that's a little more complex and it gets a little more difficult. So
Okay.
something we talked about, we didn't come up with any clear solutions, but we talked about kind of how we can.
Huh. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle or Ms. Grant? No? Very good, thank you. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, the curriculum committee met on February 22nd. We reviewed the schedule for the administration of park at the high school. This year, there will only be one testing period, unlike last year in which students were tested twice for park. ELA will take place first on April 19th, 20th, and 21st, and math will follow beginning on May 16th, 17th, and 18th. Last year, there were many students who opted out of the park exam, and it created less than optimal testing environments. So to address this issue at the high school, we're going to begin testing at the start of the normal scheduled day at 7:40, and then students that are opting out would have a delayed opening and arrive at 9:40. And then the rest of the day will operate on a delayed opening schedule.
Okay.
Buses will operate only for the regular start day of 7:40, and then no transportation accommodation will be made for students who opt out of the test. We reviewed the possibility of moving to a one student, one device strategy at the school district because we invested so heavily in technology for park testing that we're at the point where this is a possible scenario, and we're going to continue reviewing the implications of rolling this out from a curriculum basis and from a policy basis. And lastly, we talked about the Gifted and Talented program. Currently, students are pulled out of education classes to attend G&T programs, and we're looking to revamp the offerings to make them available after school rather than during school hours.
Excellent. And the park testing dates, that the calendar change is reflected in the agenda tonight, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just forget which item it is. So just be cognizant of the fact that we're creating additional delayed openings where there were not previous. Only for the high school, yes, thank you.
Can I just ask a question on those park dates? Is there any indication of whether or not there will be AP test reviews on those shortened days for those that are in AP classes?
So one of the reasons why we moved the math dates after the AP exams were to do away with that whole issue for math. And then for the first set of dates in April, they're going to build a schedule that's not the typical delayed opening schedule that we would have when we have a snow day. So all the periods that are supposed to meet that day will meet. They'll just meet for 40 minutes or 42 or some truncated period of time, so that if there is any review or critical instruction taking place, students who take the test won't miss it.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, and just one nuance, if anyone does take the bus and they are opting out, if they happen to take the bus and get there at 7:40, they would just have a study hall until the day begins.
Okay.
The day begins.
Right, okay. And the other, with the one-to-one tech, I believe, Dr. LaSusa, you sent out a survey. Did that go district-wide?
It went middle school and high school.
Middle school, high school, okay. Thank you.
I think it was so good that you kind of blocked the portal. Like, people had to fill the form out in order to access the portal. So
That was John's idea. I didn't know we could do
You know,
that.
well, it was good because I was like, why can't I get on the portal? And I realized it really took 2 seconds to fill out the form. So hopefully you'll get some really good feedback as to whether people are, truly interested or not. So
Very good, excellent. Any other questions for Ms. Kenny? No? Well, I'm going to ask Ms. Kenny to fill in
Yes.
again for Finance and Facilities, since you're the
I'm the speaker today.
regular member of the Finance Committee that's here. And that was at the meeting, sorry, Kim.
The Finance Committee met on February 29th, and we discussed the preliminary projections, which we discussed at the Open Finance Committee meeting that we just had. So all of that's been discussed already. We also discussed the ESIP project, that the work has begun, and because of the awards that have been received, we still have about $450,000 that we may put towards boiler replacements at SBS, but that's still under discussion. We discussed the Washington Ave driveway, which is also going to be on the agenda, which I think we're going to be talking more in-depthly at in board business. And lastly, we talked about the Milton Avenue borough access, that the borough is going to be preparing a temporary egress agreement to allow them access to Duchamp to do repair work on that road.
Okay, excellent. And just to recap the Open Finance meeting, the directive from the board to the administration is to go back and look at some of the items that the staff, excuse me, the staff has requested, but we can't fit into the budget given the healthcare costs. You know, how much would the tax levy increase given adding the priorities back in one at a time so we can see where, you know, where the comfort level is. I mean, obviously, we don't want to go up to 3.78 or even that 2.78 or 3.19, but, you know, I think we can't ignore the facilities, we can't ignore the staffing needs, you know, as our enrollment grows and our involvement, that's all great stuff, but we can't leave the children unsupervised. So just to recap, the direction from the board is for the administration to go back, take a look at some of the priorities, you know, prioritize for us what is the order in which we would like items, whether it's a trainer or a maintainer or the psychologist, and again, that was in no particular order. I'll come back to the board with recommendations, and we'd like to see how that impacts. Is that a fair enough summary from the? Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. LaSouza and Peter, because I know you're going to be crunching the numbers. Any additional questions on anything budget related? And again, just to recap, the reason that it's such a tight, the finances are so particularly tight this year is our health insurance costs, where it was at 4% and 0% against our budget last year. We're now looking at between 16 and possibly 20% increase. So it's a huge increase coming right off of our budget. Okay, sorry for to be Debbie Downer on that one. Policy and planning, Mr. Franz?
So we did meet end of February 29th, discussed a handful of items. A few of those are on the agenda. First reading for the victim of domestic or sexual violence, and that's a first read, and then the others, so still work to be done on that, but the others, I think we're really just policies that have been around, and we're just, again, timely review and get those in. Admission, whether it's kindergarten, first grade, or 2 through 12, just a standard policy we have, and then pupils walking to and bicycling to. And those were, again, just reapproving what we approved 3 years ago. Nothing changed in those policies. We also discussed in that same meeting the school calendar. We touched on the item that Lotta spoke to, and then I guess next calendar year, 2016-2017, there is just to note, January 2nd is a federal holiday. We will have school. So we discussed, do we reopen this? Do we look at another date? At the end of the day, we're just going to let it stand as is rather than inconvenience someone in February with the full week or April with the full week. We're just going to sit with that. And then we also discussed the breathalyzer policy. There was a discussion with the ACLU just to get their ideas and their concerns or comments that they may have to the policy. We went through that and are tweaking that with our attorney in light of that conversation, but nothing showstopper to speak of there. And then CMS graduation will be at the middle school this year. So
Slip that one in at the end.
I'm impacted by it, but
Outdoors
but
or
we will
indoors?
be.
Unknown.
Depends on Mother Nature. I
Aiming
guess.
for outdoors.
Okay, so you're going to do both, set up for both?
That's
The January.
still in the planning stages, but yeah.
Okay, very good. The January 2nd, was there any talk of making that a delayed opening? Could there be talk of making that a delayed opening?
We could do that. We didn't discuss that, but that's
We didn't
certainly something we
discuss
could do.
You know, if folks are traveling and coming back, because if it's a federal, if the holiday falls on a Sunday, so the federal holiday
Right,
falls
correct.
on a Monday.
Jan 1, New Year's is a Sunday.
Got it. So maybe it'll give folks additional travel time.
That's a good idea.
Could you consider that, Mike, to see with the teaching staff and if that would be detrimental to curriculum? Or just, I'm just throwing that out there.
That's a good idea.
That's a great
I
idea.
think it's a good idea.
Done.
Look at them.
Fantastic. I have brilliant ideas when I'm not in your meetings. Any other questions for Mr. Franz or Dr. LaSouza on? Moving on to liaison reports. Mr. Connor is traveling on business. He's unable to attend the meeting. The township, Ms. Clark?
Nothing to report from the township.
Very good. Back to Mr. Connors, who's traveling on business and not able to attend. The athletic boosters. In fact, he was not able to attend that, and neither was I. Kim, you didn't attend that, did you? Okay, we'll get an update from the boosters. Music and theater, I'll take up your time. So several chorus members, grades 7 through 9, have successfully auditioned for the 2016 Junior Region Chorus. CMS and Chatham Middle School and Chatham High School will be proudly represented by singers Layla Clark, Liam Driscoll, Nate Eck, Ronan Green, Madeline Herringer, Greg Hemstreet, correct me, Caroline Kiernan, Pace Grace Peterson, Taryn Ruffino, Ali Roy, and that was all. On March 20th at Kittatinny Regional High School. The 8th grade band and the Chatham Middle School Glee Club performed at the Prudential Center during the New Jersey Devils Hockey Flyers game on Tuesday, February 16th. That was a great outing, I heard. Also, high school trombonist Sean McCarthy was accepted to a extremely competitive New Jersey all-state band, and they performed February 20th at the NJ PAC. Chatham Music Theater Boosters would like to thank the community for supporting the Breakfast with You musicians. Nearly 700 community members attended the event, which features bands 5th through 8th grade, and then the 7th grade orchestra, and also the cast of Shrek was in attendance. And just to echo Dr. LaSousa's words, congratulations to the cast and all the staff members for both the Aladdin Junior play and the Shrek. Both productions attracted large sellout crowds. The audience was well received. At the high school, following the senior citizens the senior citizens dinner, they were invited to dinner in the band room, and then the cast mingled around the room and had a visit with some of the senior citizens. And after the Saturday play, the children were able to meet all the fairy tale characters, and they got to have their pictures taken, so that was a ton of fun. I was at the Friday night performance. It was outstanding, really one of the best. I like Legally Blonde too, but this was certainly more family friendly. So it was a fantastic performance, really well done. The amount of talent is just staggering in the district. It's really so incredible. That was music and theaters. Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny?
Nothing to report at this time.
Very good, thank you very much. Recreation, Mr. Gilfillan covers that. He's traveling also. The next meeting is tomorrow night, although knowing that crowd, I believe the majority of them will be at the basketball.
I think they canceled
Did they cancel it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got an email from.
Did they reschedule it or cancel it? Or...
They canceled it, and their next meeting is in April.
Okay, very good, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, knowing the attendees, I wasn't thinking they're going to have that. PTO District Cabinet, they met last week.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report, okay, thank you. Very good. I make a motion to pass the minutes of the February 1st public session.
Second.
I'm going to do these one at a time, Peter.
That's fine.
You want to do a roll call, or who was absent?
I think I was.
Just Kim?
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. All those
And Matt, but that doesn't matter. And Britt.
What do you mean?
No, I'm sorry, Matt was there. Wrong meeting.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
You got that, Peter?
Got it.
Okay, and also make
That's
a
a 6-0.
601, right? 601. And then I also make a motion to move the February 22nd public and executive session.
Second.
Was everybody in attendance there?
The members that are present except for Kim, so that passes again 6-0.
We didn't vote on it yet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Not me.
Okay.
So that passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. We have our first opportunity for public commentary. There'll also be another opportunity at the end of toward the end of the meeting after we go through the agenda and I think board business. Yes, and board business. So if you wouldn't mind, the microphone is on my right, your left side of the room. If you wouldn't mind signing in and introducing yourself.
I think I only missed one. I was here for the first time. I only missed one. I think I only missed one. Hey, Pete, I think I only missed one meeting. I think I just missed the last one. I only missed the last one. Can we? Yeah, I was here for the first, all right. I think I just missed the one.
Hi, Ms. Dolan.
I
Hi,
can look on my calendar.
good evening,
You can
everyone.
just check if you know. Sorry, go ahead, Jane.
No, good evening, everyone. I realize I come before the administration and the board generally with the same purpose, the topic of homework, as well as stress amongst our students. Dr. Lasousa's presentation of Session 1, The Future Focus of Education, should be required viewing for everyone who has any interest in our children and the schools. So thank you for listening, for willingness to consider homework as a relevant topic, and for past dialogues, and for addressing the homework approach to homework, at least during some of our school breaks. I have also noticed homework in the middle school seems now less rote and more relevant. So I hope these small but significant adjustments can be considered a good start in a positive direction versus the end all. It's hard to come before you time after time, and it's sometimes even embarrassing because it may seem like I'm the voice of one. Whereas I'm not trying to validate my position or elevate myself, I do want to say adults and students alike have approached me affirming they share some of the same concerns or opinions regarding homework, often after reviewing videos of the board meetings. I'm not sure why those adults don't step forward in the same fashion as I do, but I suppose it's for similar reasons why people don't attend programs or meetings or volunteer. Everyone just trusts someone else will do it. I only say this to respectfully request the district not view my efforts month after month as a personal crusade, but rather as an idea slowly churning and whose time has come. To illustrate, as per a recent New York Times article, I didn't bring the date, the APA, or American Psychological Association, reports 1 in 3 teenagers reported feeling stress leading to depression or sadness, citing school as the biggest source of that stress. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports teens are getting 2 hours less sleep each night than the recommended amount, and kids in elementary schools are reporting increased incidences of migraines and ulcers. One point in the article noticed, in fact, test scores went up as homework loads went down. A professor and pediatrician from St. Louis University of School of Medicine took a sample of 2,100 students from a California high school and, using standardized measurements, found 54% of the youth were manifesting signs of depression, and 80% of that population was showing signs of anxiety, school-related. Those are big numbers. And consider our own health and wellness survey in this district of our middle schoolers and high schoolers. 85% of the CMS respondents reported 1 to 2 hours of high school nightly after a full day of school. And our high schoolers reported 3+ or even up to 5 hours nightly of homework. So the 1 to 2 hours were just the middle schoolers, and the high schoolers reported they were getting less sleep than what was actually the amount the Academy of Pediatrics had recommended. Now that's a lot of homework. 1/5 of our high schoolers reported feeling sad or some type of depressive moods. 10% have some food issues, and 8% had suicide ideation. So I would just ask, let's please continue to keep the matter of homework as it relates to the broader topic of health and wellness on this district's radar. We often say now that homework is part of the discussions in all our schools within our district, and that's great. But I am looking forward to going more from discussing to even more concrete changes. In closing, the spring break is fast approaching. Let's give our children a full break from academic obligations, particularly homework, during this break. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Thank you for recognizing the efforts of the administration and the entire team, as you know, regarding homework as well as wellness and the programs that Dr. Lasousa has put out there. So it's nice to mention it, and the more people that can attend those, it'll start to permeate throughout the community and not just be a battle of 1 or 2 or 5. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Dr. LaSousa?
I guess I'll just say that I certainly don't think that you're the only person in the community who's attuned to the issue of homework and student health and well-being. I think we've made a number of tangible steps, or taken a number of tangible steps over the past 2 years, this year in particular. We continue to do so. We continue to have committees and groups of folks within the district trying to figure out and address ways of ensuring that our students are competitive and get everything they need from an academic point of view, but also are balanced and that we're taking into account the whole child when we educate our students. I've also had lengthy discussions with other superintendents. You know, we're involved with a consortium with local schools nearby. I've been in contact with the West Windsor Plainsboro superintendent, who has been in the news a little bit for his efforts in this regard. So it's a serious issue, and it's certainly going to remain a focal point of mine as we move into next year. And I might not see the homework issue in exactly the same, through the same lens as Ms. Devlin, but the whole issue and notion of student wellness and well-being, especially as they leave us and go to college, where suicide rates have risen also in recent years, is of critical importance.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. LaSousa.
I would just like to take a minute to clarify, in case I may have imparted it in a bit confusing way. I have to just strongly applaud and thank the positive and affirming changes that have been taking place in the district this past year, 2 years, and the direction the district's going in. I'd like to see more of it with regard to homework, but I see it being done, and I certainly see it being in health and wellness. When I mentioned that I didn't want to be looked at as just the voice of one, or I seem to be the one coming up here time after time again, I just didn't want it to make it look like this is my personal thing and I'm a little wacky. This lady comes up every month. She's talking about homework. She's talking about homework all the time. I just wanted to, I wish there were some other people coming up, if they did have some concerns, just taking a moment or two and articulating those concerns. But I didn't want to at all imply that I'm just the only one feeling this, and that the district or the administration isn't acting upon it. In fact, quite the contrary. I see a lot of positive results, and hopefully we continue in that direction. So yay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Devlin. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming again. And thank you for representing that voice, because I know there's more folks out there. Any additional public commentary? We'll have another opportunity again at the end. Mr. Heap, you're good? I'm good. Okay, just checking. Very good. We're going to move on to the regular action items, and then we'll swing back again if there's additional public commentary toward the end. So moving on to personnel, Ms. Clark, would you mind moving those items?
I move action items A1 through 17 for vote.
A second.
Oh, it is here, sorry. There's an addition of an assistant girls coach. Is that a replacement or is that an addition from last year? Were we able to increase the staff, or is this a,
These are all existing.
existing, okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle or Beth on any of the personnel items? No? Seeing none? Mr. DeCola, would you mind?
Agenda items A1 through A17. Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Fantastic, thank you. We're moving on to Finance and Facilities. In Mr. Gil Fillin's absence, Ms. Kenny is going to move those items.
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 to B8, and then B10 to B25, and we will discuss B9 in board business.
I'll second.
While you're,
Oh,
I think.
could you do the
Yes.
donations? Yeah, that'd be great.
Say that.
We'd like to thank the athletic boosters for their donation of $12,547 to various sports programs. To CMCM, Melton, Peterson, Bruce Groves of Emilcott Associations for their donations to the robotics team. The donation from Target to CHS for public education materials of $177.07. We'd like to thank SBS PTO for their donation of $1,400 for the use of a new sign for the school. The PTO of Lafayette for $6,143 for portable speaker and media center literature reading and research. Also would like to accept $400 for from Patrick and Pamela Sullivan for the school's band program. We'd like to thank the Ruth Family Charitable Fund for their contribution of $1,000 to the 2016 Ruth Family Scholarship for the Performing Arts. I'd like to thank the Child Education Foundation for their donation of $12,602 to various schools for various programs. Continuing the PTO donations at Milton Ave for $360.62 for a portable grand piano with keyboard and universal sustain pedal. Again, for the SBS PTO for $1,870 for 194 books for the library. And
You're good.
that is it. Thank you very much, everybody.
That's fantastic, thank you. What a great to have such a supportive PTO and community. And the boosters of the Education Foundation, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeQuilla on any of the Finance and Facilities items, or Ms. Kenny, or?
Yeah, I did have a question on the batting cages for the baseball. Where is that going to be located, do you know?
Those were indoor, if they wanted to use indoor cages, or in the screen right where they currently have their cages. So it's a new netting.
So that'll be at the high school?
Yes.
At the high school.
Does anybody else have any additional questions? No, my questions are on the seats. I do not have any questions. No additional questions? Does anybody need any more time? No? Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items B1 through B8 and B10 through B25. Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Moving on to curriculum items. Back to you, Ms. Kenny, would you mind?
Yes, I'd like to move action items C1 to C4 for vote.
I'll second.
Thank you. I had a question on C2. Nope, maybe it was C. There's the park, is it, there,
We have an action plan in our packet, you know that, right?
well, yeah, it's not, it was the park where the state is mandating, the park is making you put together an action plan?
That's two.
That's two.
That's two, okay. I lost track, it was either two or three, I have notes for both. But, I mean, you can put together all the action plans you want, that may be quite brilliant. If the students still refuse, or the parents refuse on their behalf if they're at the younger grades, what's the ramification from the state? What's the school district looking at from a penalty point of view?
You want to answer that, Karen?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Chase. And what's the percentage of considered of completion or met, 95?
95% is the threshold. We didn't have enough middle school. We were below that rate throughout the middle school, but they also apply a different mechanism, I forget the term that they use, that kind of gives you a little bit more wiggle room.
Okay.
And we met their calculation in most cases, except for our special education population at the middle school. But if you don't meet it in one subgroup, your school
You're
doesn't
out.
meet it. So the middle school, we were out there, and then of course, we were out all across the board at the high school.
And the plan requires, sorry, I'm going to direct it to you. The state is asking you to put together a plan to increase participation rates, correct?
Yes, so the state has required all school districts that have not met this 95 participation target to put together a plan in an effort to increase.
It might be broken. Is it unplugged? There you go.
Is that better? Okay. So to put together a plan that would include some mechanisms in an effort to increase participation, but like you said, it's difficult. So we put together our plan, and we're asking for you to just approve it, and we'll submit it to the county office.
Okay. And
The
again,
state provided all districts with a template, which they've done in the past. Anytime you don't meet No Child Left Behind or ESEA, we've done this in the past too. We'd had to do it at Lafayette 3 years ago, I think it was. So we use some of the language that they kind of guide us to use, and we...
So you've checked the box, you've put together a plan at their request. If the district does not meet the 95% again, what happens, what's the fall?
I don't believe the state has committed to saying there's a formal penalty at this point. There was some threat of withholding funds, but as of this point in time, nothing has been solidified.
Okay.
Do we,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ms.
do we have an idea of how many districts are in the same position we are with less than 95%? I have to believe we're not alone.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we're certainly not alone.
Okay,
And
so-
the Star Ledger ran an article a week or two ago about the districts in the state who had the greatest amount of refusal. We didn't make the top 10, but some of our neighboring, some of our
always
neighboring
next year.
communities, I think Livingston and Montclair and Morristown were all in that group. So they're all, dealing with this similarly to how we are.
And I've actually consulted with several of my counterparts in other districts about the action plan. So everybody who is in the curriculum group to which I belong is doing an action plan, and that's in our neighboring districts. Like Dr. Lususa said, it's even one subgroup could warrant an action plan on part of the whole school. So
Okay.
we're not alone in this.
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for the explanation, and so far, there's no penalties that you've heard of. Okay, well, thank you for putting together an action plan. Sorry, that was my only question on curriculum.
I was going to say, it's in the package.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure it's brilliant, but you have no control over the results of participation. Does anybody have any questions on the curriculum items?
I just have one question on item 4 about it's more or less about the delayed opening in Chatham High School, and to just discuss how that's going to be communicated with parents about the busing, about encouraging participation, the new high school graduation requirements, and how Park falls within those parameters. I think the more we can be proactive on our end to, put it out there, and that, our current 9th graders may not fall within the current graduation requirements, so it would be encouraged that they do sit for Park, because it may turn out that those other scores will not count in this transition period. And I think in as plain language as possible, we need to put this out in many different venues, in the mail, via email, and not just on the website.
We have a letter that we drafted in conjunction with the high school administration that's actually scheduled to go out at 9 p.m. tonight, assuming that this resolution passes. And it will essentially say that Park is a state requirement, that if students are in school, they have to take Park. It will have a link to the parent portal so that parents can click and find out if their child has met the graduation requirement. So the high school administration has loaded Genesis with all of the possible, or at least the ones that we administer, like PSAT and SAT and anything else, that would constitute a graduation requirement. And then there is a question for parents if the child will participate in the various sections of Park. And then we do explain that, why we're having delayed openings, the fact that we think it will minimally disrupt instructional time, and last year we learned some lessons from how all that unfolded. And then once we have a feel for the exact numbers, then we'll know what we're dealing with in terms of kids who will actually be in school that morning. We suspect, like last year, that the greatest number of test takers will be in 9th grade, and that every year after that we'll have fewer and fewer. I think we have about 90% of our juniors have already met the graduation requirement, and I think the number isn't far behind that for sophomores, from what I remember. So
Okay.
we'll keep on communicating. We plan for any parent who doesn't complete the survey about whether their kid will take park or not. The counselor will reach out to that family so that we'll know definitively, and we have a statement that says refusing to take part could potentially jeopardize your graduation status if you don't meet the graduation requirement in some other way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions on the curriculum C1 through C4? No? Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items C1 through C4. Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Friends?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. White?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to policy, Mr. Franz?
I'd like to move agenda items D.1 to D.2.
I'll second.
Does anybody have any questions on any of D.1 or D.2? No? All those in favor?
I
Oh,
did, I
I'm
said
sorry.
it, I said it.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Kim's not feeling well, so
I know his
I
voice
know,
is
my voice is
petering out.
not as loud as usual.
her voice is falling to her illness. And that's why Sal and
So
I are
I
sitting
second.
away a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, that's right, space.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Against? Abstentions? Thank you, Peter.
Passed 7-0.
Excellent. So we're going to move into our board business portion of the agenda. Before we jump into B9, a lot of that was tabled. Dr. LaSusa, you mentioned during the open finance meeting, and I never circled back to it, to ask, one of the projects coming out of capital improvement or capital reserve are repaving of the high school parking lot, the front parking lot. I think it was a year ago or maybe 2 years ago where Mr. Groh had recommended a particular traffic pattern. Is there an opportunity to maybe look at the traffic pattern? I thought he had indicated that he felt it would be safer if the students all went in one direction versus it being multi-directional to get to the exit. And again, I'm going back a couple of years. I just thought maybe you could circle back with Mr. Groh. If we're going to repave, is there an opportunity to maybe implement his plan? I mean, he's there every day, so he sees the traffic patterns. And he had indicated that it would be safer if we can have the traffic flow in one direction and feed that center, so the kids weren't coming from 4 angles into that exit area.
We will double back with him. We haven't discussed that recently.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind just doubling, I just remember Mr. Groh talking about changing the pattern of the traffic inside the lot. Okay, that was my side note. Also, the referendum numbers, we went out to the Department of Education, right? Or we're finalizing the numbers. We're going to go out to the DOE. When should we expect numbers back from the Department of Education on how much the state will pay for any of the 5 or 6 items that we're thinking or considering of putting out for referendum?
We believe early April is when we'll get word from our architect.
Okay, early April. Okay. And then how soon after that does the Finance Committee meet to start crunching? Because that's when we
It
can...
would be the next meeting. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
But at that point, once we get those numbers back, and Kim, correct me where I go off the rails, we could start determining how much each item is going to cost taxpayers by each line item.
Yep.
Okay. So mid-April or beginning of April? Beginning of April.
We were hoping for the beginning of April, but the architect doesn't. It's a guess based on how quickly the DOE turns it around.
Okay. Okay, and that was all they had. So, Ms. Kenny, did you want to tee up B9, or did you want me to tee up B9? Sure thing. So, Mr. Gilfillan and I have been meeting with the Borough Council, and there is an agenda item on the
B9 on the finance.
B9 on our agenda. If you could just pass that to Mr. Arnott. I have some glossies here. Sorry, if you could pass those down. I know, with circles and arrows. So B9, the Chatham Borough is requesting that we approve or act favorably upon they want to vacate a piece of property at the entrance of Washington Avenue. So the backstory is the entrance to Washington Avenue School is currently 2 lanes. The first, you said 50 feet, but I thought they always said 100 feet.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So the board member said 50, but it's the first 100 feet of Washington Avenue is the borough property. It's not district property, it's a road. It's essentially a borough road. The resident to the left of it, adjacent to that, does not want to go through Washington Avenue and has hired a lawyer. He doesn't want, and law says that he doesn't have to be forced onto private property, which is the school district. So the borough would like to vacate half to the homeowner or the property owner on the left and the other half to the district. What that would, and the end result of that would be a one-way driveway into Washington Avenue where buses would have a difficult time getting in there, certainly emergency vehicles. Moreover, it would back the traffic up past the train station undoubtedly. So, I mean, I took some pictures. I didn't take them, I'm sorry, I stole them off Google Earth. I just wanted you to be able to see, Peter, if you've seen this 100 times, but if you want it, go ahead. So, on page 2, you'll see the driveway with a red line through it. It would decrease that property down. When Mr. Matt and I met with the borough originally, we were going to split some cost and create a second lane. We were going to kick in the 110 that we had allotted for our parking lot. The borough's had second thoughts, or their budget doesn't allow it. You know, either way, they're not able to help incur any of the costs for a second lane. So
To the right of that.
to the right of it.
Got it.
So from a district point of view, we want to maintain the 2 lanes.
For safety reasons.
Safety and traffic,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, and you're vacating the property to a single homeowner, causing difficulty for the rest of the town, potentially. So, be that as it may, that's what the borough is proposing. So, there's a couple of photos, I don't know if you could see. So, Lotta and I wanted to pull B9 out and have an additional discussion on thoughts about, you know, the options are approve it, vote against it, saying that it's not good for the district, or tabling it, taking it off the table, which in effect, the borough can do whatever they want. They don't need our approval to vacate the property. We don't have to accept the 100 feet that they're going to vacate to the right of it. Is that a true statement, Peter?
Actually, I unfortunately have to correct you. The borough does need a request from each of the 2 property owners, which would be the person who owns the property that adjacent to the driveway and the district, in order for them to vacate the property. And in this term, vacate means divide up the property between the 2 adjacent homeowners,
Okay.
which is the district and the homeowner. If the district does not approve the resolution, the district is then, the borough is then forced to create the first 100 feet as a 2-way street, which it is legally obligated to do. So if the district passes the resolution, the property gets divided between the homeowner and the district, which causes certain issues to the district. If the district does not pass or just ignores the resolution, the borough is then forced to turn the first 100 feet into a 2-way street,
Okay.
which will create its own traffic nightmare and safety issue.
Okay.
So either way, the kind of district is impacted with the safety issue.
So can we answer this? Could they say they're going to give it all to the homeowner?
No,
You can't do that.
no.
So
And according to the borough administrator, they can turn around and say that, okay, out of the 50 feet, we'll give 20 feet to the homeowner and 30 feet to the district so they can maintain a wide enough driveway. It's either a 50-50 split or another.
That's interesting. I didn't
So
realize that.
what's the, say that passes and they give the first 100 feet say it becomes a 2-way street, what changes the demographic of how it is now, lining the street?
I presume if it becomes a 2-way street, the borough will go in and, put a double line down,
whatever it is.
and, signage will be added that there is a 1 entry lane for the district, and the homeowner has the right to make a right turn out of his driveway to access Washington Avenue rather than make a left turn and proceed around the full entrance of the school.
And we know that's going to be a potential nightmare.
Oh,
because people are
and
gonna use
dangerous,
that
that
way
is so
anyway.
dangerous. And the
So
traffic
then you're
backup will be
dealing with
horrendous.
traffic coming in the opposite direction and potential accidents and all sorts of ticketing and,
I think it needs to get the attention of the borough.
right.
Well, either way, it's
That's the
gonna
whole
be
point.
a
We need to
Now,
have the
I
borough,
have never had kids at Washington Avenue School, so just clarify for me if you will. When you pull into this two-lane driveway, does it merge into one as it turns?
yes,
So they alternate?
Yeah.
Well,
generally.
one of the lanes is left open. So currently, the 2 lanes of driveway in the first 100 feet, half of it is left open, and half of it has a line of cars coming into it which go that way. I think in practical, okay, that's what's supposed to happen. I think in reality, the people that are in a big hurry, go down the second lane and then create an alternate merge. But
And that's what-
technically, a
that's what
lane
happens.
is
We
supposed to be
alternate.
left open for buses or the potential of any emergency vehicles.
Got it.
You alternate and it's still already backed up all the
But,
way.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line, there's no great solution until we can get a second lane. I mean,
Correct.
I have nothing against the homeowner getting all that additional property, and he may end up putting up a big giant addition and no driveway.
Right.
It's out of our hands, and it's not really my concern, other than the fact that it's going to cause a traffic nightmare, and it's not in the
And a
best
safety
interest
issue.
of, and a safety issue.
Right. I mean,
So again, this is why the Finance Committee just tabled this during Finance, and we wanted to discuss it during Board Business, and you give it some attention, and then have the board members vote as they feel. Go ahead,
So if
Michelle.
we say, I would say, if we say no, because if we say yes, then there's gonna be all the traffic and we're gonna get headaches. If we say no, then the borough's gonna make it the 2 lanes, but it's their decision, this is what they made, and they deal with the headaches. Correct? They
Yeah.
deal with the complaints. So I vote no. Let them deal with it, they're the
Sorry.
ones that are creating the problem,
And again,
so I vote no.
hopefully we'll meet somewhere in the middle where we can kick in some money for the second lane, and that we can, they've offered up their engineers for sure. But I think there's a better solution here. I think there's a more collaborative solution. But Ms. Clark, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
To clarify, so I'm looking at this picture, I think I know the answer to this question, but that field there is school district property?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
The sidewalk is borough property?
And so,
Technically, they have an easement, or, it is part of the district's property, but there is a.
It's part of
easement,
it?
yeah.
Okay, but, so that's like kind of a shared resource?
yeah, just like on any
Okay.
driveway, on any street. You have like from the-
On that picture on page 3, is
Yes.
there an option, and obviously this is an expense,
Yeah, that's the
but is,
rub.
is there an option to actually take away some of the field?
That's what
Sure.
we're talking about.
Yeah,
That's
what
what
we
I'm
What we
proposed.
wanted to do.
That was the initial proposal, is
Yes.
take away a piece of the field, and it would be about 20 to 25 feet was in order to get an accurate lane in there, and then also build out some parking, because we're still 14 spots shy for staff members at Washington Avenue. So the money we had budgeted toward that project, we're going to work in unison with the borough in hopes of, allowing
We
this to be.
proposed that, and we asked them to split the costs, and they said no. So this is what.
And
Well, they said yes.
Well, they said
No, they
yes.
said yes, and then-
The committee meeting said yes when they took it back to the full council.
And they said no.
Then it was, the full council said no, and again, those meetings weren't shared with us on this particular topic, but
But that was what we.
My concern would be that even with, that homeowner has the right to do whatever they want, I mean,
Well,
their
within-
driveway.
within the law.
Within the law, but the driveway is where it is right now.
Correct.
My concern was even if we're able to put in another lane, if that homeowner kept their driveway there and still wanted to back out and go up to Washington Avenue during a high traffic, we're still talking
But if
about
there's a second
challenge.
lane,
Glad you're on negotiation.
if they
I get that, but
vacate,
I think even still, like, coming out.
I think they're also proposing that he put up some.
right,
fencing.
if they
Okay, all right,
vacate,
something, yeah.
it is part of the
Delineate his property.
the vacate order, or well, I don't know the technical
Okay.
term, that's why Rich usually sits in, but they would have to put up fencing
Okay,
and like Belgian blocks.
okay,
To-
okay.
to
So
delineate.
something has to,
See, if we know, but if we vote yes and we take this property, this is
Yeah.
all now our problem. If we say no, the borough is still on the hook to have this problem, and then when all the traffic is created,
Yes.
and they're gonna still be getting the complaints, then maybe they'll come back and negotiate with us and share the costs to put in that extra.
And maybe that's what the
space.
borough needs, is,
So that's how I feel, we need to keep them
Isn't that
What is
on
this
the hook
part
for
of the
this.
field
So I
used
said we
for?
vote no, so we keep the borough on the hook if we're doing the right thing.
I don't disagree, I agree with you.
I would like just to take the opportunity to clarify for the board members that are looking at page 3.
Yes.
The open grass, the area between the sidewalk and where you see the first soccer goal
Yep.
is really just open grass space. It is not a field.
It's not, right, it's
There's
not used for
no
anything.
activities other than the kids running around that, as they would in any grass area, but there are no organized sports or no events played on there.
And they do not use this for recess, it's too close to the road.
No, they
They're
do
way
not.
back.
That is not
and,
utilized-
yeah, this is just an open field, which we have to be sensitive to that.
Open grass space. I don't even want to call it a field.
Okay, but we have to be sensitive to that too.
And the other note, we have asked our district engineer in conjunction with the architect, if the district did approve the property, the borough to vacate, the cost of the district to go ahead and expand the driveway and install the parking right below the soccer goal would be approximately $260,000, which the driveway aspect, which incorporates where you have to then move the sidewalk that currently exists, is approximately additional $150,000 of expense. to the
On
district.
top of the 260?
No, of the 260.
Of the
260.
The parking lot addition that we've been
Was
talking about
110.
is about 100 or 110.
Okay.
So there's an approximate additional 150 to expand the driveway and redo the sidewalk.
Okay.
So then, so 150,000, so we're asking them for $75,000, and they're saying no? Is that what we're saying? We're willing to split the
They
150?
were originally, the borough
But I just want to be
commented-
clear on the number. Are we asking them for
We didn't go and
$75,000?
ask them for a specific number.
But that's-
Originally, when we discussed with the borough, they thought utilizing this as a shared resource with the borough engineer, general contracting, and using some of the borough work, they could get this done for approximately the 110 because of the, the lack of not using an outside contractor. And using-
110 versus 150.
Versus
260.
They think they can get the whole thing done for 110.
Yes, because they would use some borough resources, and the borough engineer would obviously not charge an architect or engineering.
So they're trying to say that would be their contribution, is to utilize their resources and not actually give us any
Which
money.
we were all on board with, because we budgeted 110 anyway for
Right.
that project. So we were just going to apply it to a slightly modified project.
Okay,
and
great,
use their
and then they
res-
said no.
Correct.
Okay.
This is after several meetings.
So now we're going to vote, well, we voted
Can we
down,
vote
then you
now
go
on-
back to them and you say,
We didn't vote it down yet, though.
no,
It's
but I said
tough
if we
because
vote.
we're talking about, cutting staff or half, getting only half of a maintenance person to
Or half
maintain the
of a-
fields.
Half
You
of the
know,
trainer.
Half of a trainer.
Yes.
And clearly there's priorities in what we should be spending money on.
This was budgeted. This wouldn't come out of the presentation that we saw.
The 110,000 for the parking lot addition was actually in the 15-16 budget, and we've been on hold
Right.
trying to figure out
So we
what's
have
happening.
that money.
That money is set aside in the budget
So we have that.
to expand the
It
parking lot.
wouldn't impact the
Good.
budget for next year. So that money's been on hold because we're still, is 14 the right number? 14 spaces shy for staff
Yes.
at Washington Avenue? So that was, the 110 was put aside. After talking with the borough, they thought sharing the resources, we could apply that 110 that the district has set aside and do both those projects. Because we wouldn't have to go out to private vendors. We could use some of their resources. So here we are. Does anybody have additional?
I guess I just wanted to clarify the voting no versus not doing it. I thought there was isn't there,
There's three options.
we can pull it, we can either
You could
vote
table
yes,
it,
we
it
can
doesn't
vote
go
yes.
away.
We can vote yes, we can vote no, or we can table it.
Correct,
Yes to vacate, no to vacate, or table it.
correct.
But by voting no to vacate, we would, is that just going on record?
Yes.
That we,
No, I think says, this is not a great idea for the school districts of the Chathams.
but we accepted it, but we
No.
have to, we don't.
No, we do not
No,
accept
they're
it.
going to make their two-way street, and it is going to be a nightmare, and hopefully no one's going to, safety issue, no one's going to have an accident or get hit by a car. But again, if it happens, it's the borough's headache, not our headache. Because this is, having a two-way, to me, with kids and the way parents drive in there, it's really a safety issue. And so if I don't want that liability. I mean,
But-
we should not be taking that liability. So if they're gonna make that decision, that's the borough's responsibility.
It is,
And I
but
hope
we-
nobody gets hurt.
But we are responsible for the safety of those kids.
No, of course.
So, I mean, we
But
can
if
say
we
it's their
vote yes, we
responsibility.
still have the same problem.
Okay, I just.
Right, we still have this, then we just, you know.
I think
we
our
have
goal is
a
to
half a
get that
piece of
done
property.
right.
Yes,
How do we
I
get
agree.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the right budget.
Correct.
We can't.
I mean, I think if we vote no, is somebody gonna go back to them and say, look, this is,
Oh, yeah.
this is not gonna work, like, you know, we need, I mean, we're
Well,
talking
we've
about
expressed that, I
$75,000.
mean, Matt and I have met with them, that this will be a traffic nightmare and a safety issue.
Yeah.
Not in that order. It will be a safety issue and a traffic nightmare.
Yep.
The traffic backs up now. If you bring that to a
Oh, yeah,
single
it's gonna be
lane,
Crazy.
it's going to back up to the train station.
Yeah.
Jill, have there been traffic studies done at Washington Avenue? I know there were years ago when they put in that additional, instead of just saying this is going to be a traffic nightmare, can we say, 260 cars come in during this given hour? I hate to ask, but could someone sit out there and say, we sat there for a week, I mean,
No, I think
I think we need to
recommended
give
that.
hardcore
It's not going to
numbers.
change anything, whether there's 200 cars or 2,000 cars. We're still,
Right.
the question on the table is this particular 100 feet.
We did recommend that, though,
But
and I
the
thought they
reason-
did that.
it's
We talked about that a
really
couple of months
The
ago.
borough is aware of the traffic studies that were done. At some of the meetings we've had, the borough traffic officer was there, the borough police have been there, and note that this is a true nightmare if it becomes a two-way
Okay.
street.
Okay.
Or it becomes a
Exactly what you
nightmare with only a
suggested.
one-lane driveway.
Okay.
And I think they had somebody sit there.
I think that's the only way you do a traffic study is to literally look at the traffic and count it. I
And in
don't-
fairness to the borough, their hands are tied. The homeowner hired an attorney, and the attorney, and the two attorneys, advise the borough that they cannot force a private homeowner to drive through the private property, which is the school. So it's not like the
Has anybody
borough.
talked to the homeowner?
They've been talking to the homeowner for 2 years now.
No, I know, but like, if they're paying lawyer fees and everything else now, maybe they'll come up with the $75,000. Here's your property. And-
Originally, they were going to kick in some, but that seemed to have fallen through. He just wants the property. But although it would cost that homeowner a significant amount to put up the fence and the Belgian block, and so it will cost them some money.
The estimated cost to the homeowner if the borough vacates is approximately $20,000 to put up the Belgian block and the fencing to divide the 100 feet of property.
But they're getting 2,200 square feet of property.
Which they just bought. This
For
is-
free.
These are like, these people moved in here knowing this.
The school's been there about 75, 85 years now.
All right,
Okay, well.
Is everybody ready to vote?
it's not a great situation, I
So,
understand.
Ms. Kenny, would you mind moving B9?
I would like to, I'd like to move action items B9 for vote.
Second.
Thank you, Kim. Any further discussion? Guess we could have done that first, but... No?
So I'm just trying to understand the way it's worded.
Right. How are we voting?
Yeah, exactly, the way this is worded, that we approve the borough in order to vacate Oliver Street. Recommendations. Approves the
If we
Chatham
if we
Borough-
approve the agenda, you authorize the borough to go ahead. as
Oh,
long
to
as-
vacate, I got it, okay. All
So,
right, I don't approve them to vacate, in my opinion.
okay, could you do a
Yeah, I'm going to do a roll call
roll
vote.
call vote? when you-
Agenda item B9, Mr. Harnack.
No.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
No.
Ms. Clark.
No.
Ms. Cronin.
No.
Mr. Franz. Ms. Kenny.
No.
Ms. Weber.
No.
Agenda item fails 07, and that is the first.
Fails unanimously.
Yep.
It fails unanimously. Thank you for the discussion,
I will report back to the borough tomorrow.
And if they want to meet again, Matt and I are willing to go back to the table. We still have the 110, and we still want to do the shared resources, and we still want to make this work for everybody.
Jill, if you need more people to come to meetings or whatever, I know you guys are stretched, so just let us know.
Okay,
We'll
fantastic.
make sure that-
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So
So
I apologize. We have our second- oh, Is there additional board business?
You want to take home?
Any other,
No.
any other?
Actually, I think it's an item
Board
here for
business?
us.
No.
I saw this.
Okay, we have our second opportunity for public
This is
opinion. If
new.
anybody would like to make a comment on anything on the agenda or anything on their mind. The driveway, if
Never
you'd like
had
to
that before.
chime in on the driveway, if you'd like to see the
Yeah, I
pictures.
don't either.
You get to see the pictures. No, seeing no
I saw it.
additional public commentary, thank you.
see it.
I make a motion
Oh, here it
to
is.
close the public session.
Okay, second. That's it. You
All those in
want to take
favor?
that home.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Tom, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.